earlier you mentioned data and how
Mhm.
many data points were involved with the human body, right? And human
Mhm.
being and the human existence, let's say. And so I think that this is an interesting topic with some of the things that have been happening lately with like TikTok, right?
Right.
And so, A, could you maybe shed some light on the whole cybersecurity data side of this situation? And then B, maybe elaborate on how AI basically keeps your data secure in a medical sense, and then how we make sure things are secure here at Clarify, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the TikTok thing's actually a rather interesting thought problem. If you divorce yourself from the dopamine addiction that's generated by
Well,
like,
I feel like if anyone is to be asked, it's you,
yeah,
because not only do you come from like a software side and a cybersecurity side, but also have a very broad, high level perspective on large major events or major events, I should say.
yeah.
And so I think that I kind of saved this question for now, just because we had kind of talked about it a little bit off camera, but I really wanted to hear your perspective on the things and how they relate to AI and cybersecurity and data as a whole, right?
So it's a large topic because data is powerful, and anything that's powerful can be used dangerously. So, and that's a lot of people are, oh, data is like oil. Data's not like oil. Data is more like uranium. It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
you can by itself, it's already doing things. It's existing. It's just spraying off active particles. But you start doing things with it, and it gets really powerful. It gets really dangerous. You enrich it and you use it in bombs, and we can blow up entire cities. Or
uranium, not data.
yeah, you can't. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, maybe. Who
I
knows?
don't think data could do it by itself. Uranium
Yeah,
could.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you need to put things with it. So, I mean, we could beat this analogy to
I
death.
mean,
But
ICBMs, they use tracking data. Who knows?
right, stop. But so the power that is inherent in data comes from its mass.
Right.
So by itself, as one piece of data is nothing. Looking at the data hierarchy, data is just ones and zeros. It's just a
Mhm.
bunch of stuff, ones points that exist on some type of storage medium. And then when we take it a step further and we enrich that data with some level of context, we bring it together and we make it human consumable, you have information.
Yeah.
And that information can do a variety of things. That's when you start actually moving from the resource into the powerful phase. You enrich that information further, with additional context and additional pieces of information coming together, and you've got knowledge, and that is where data becomes truly capable. Is you can actually do things with that. You can act on that and make decisions that will impact large or small scales of people. You take knowledge and combine it and enrich it further, and that becomes wisdom and strategy and direction, and what you can do with all of these pieces of knowledge. So when I'm saying data, and a lot of the scientists in the space are saying data, they are referring to those individual pieces of information that exist in storage and have not been enriched yet. And when we're saying information, we're referring to this enriched pieces of data that can then come together and allow people to understand what those pieces of data mean. And then you start dealing with knowledge capital and all this other crap when you start working your way uphill and you get more and more pieces of information together. So essentially, you're just chunking things, as
Mhm.
you work uphill into pieces that can actually be worked on. So that the relevance to that, to what you were talking about, kind of goes into the TikTok space. Um, your phone, your mobile device, whatever it is, whether it's an Android or it's an iPhone or it's a Nokia, although some of the old Nokias aren't doing anything, but I think you could probably kill someone with some of the original Nokias because you did it so
There's a
much.
brick.
Right.
Yes.
But whatever your mobile device is, or that extensive device at this point is a laptop or desktop, and in the case of TikTok, it's mostly the phone, is collecting data about you. Whether it's where it's sitting, at that particular point, if it's on or off, if you've swiped on it, if you've looked at it, if depending on the devices that are associated with it, it's collecting all of that information. And that information then goes into a data store
Right.
somewhere, depending on who owns the brand or what app it is, and what they can reach in the phone. There's a lot of different layers of protection that are built around that. That data becomes available either to the app developer or to the device owner, which in Apple or Android most of the time, or Samsung. Um, and that information then, or that data then gets compiled into information that can start to be used to build a profile about the person that's using it. Now that profile at that point is not particularly tied to you.
Right.
You know, so it's not. They don't know that it's Matt's phone. They don't know that it's
Mhm.
Shane's phone. They know that it's user giant, number
Yeah.
of characters. But looking at that information as a whole, you've got knowledge. So people that own the phone in this particular part of the world are looking at TikTok this much of the time, and they're looking at these particular views and da 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 da. Now that's two different branches of that information, but a lot of organizations, TikTok in particular, can shuffle that together and create a pretty good digital profile of who's looking at their content and what they're doing. Now, we've all heard of the algorithms that drive all of this data that's presented to us, all the content that we actually see. That is being curated with variables based on how you're reacting to content that you're seeing. If you don't swipe on it for a few seconds, that gets a little more weight. If you like it, it gets a little more weight. If you swipe really quick, it gets less weight. If you watch it again, if you tag it, all of these different functions are collecting your preferences and building that profile further. So where AI steps into this is AI is really good at filling in blanks. It's really good at it. That's what we want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Back to our original conversation about predicting cancer earlier, the way that it can predict those things is it looks at the current condition and it says, well, if these 5 things changed, it's going to look like this. So I'm going to fill in all kinds of blanks. Mm-hmm. AI can do that not with 5 things, but with 1 billion things.
Oh, wow.
So you can have hundreds of thousands of parameters and it will run these scenarios over and over again to come up with some viable predictions. And then you start adding more weights in there and you reduce the number of unknowns so that it gets better at predicting outcomes. That's the way that the algorithm works on TikTok, to show you more of what you want to see. But this backfires mightily if you look at one thing too long. I've manipulated these algorithms for years. At one point on TikTok, playing with it, all I was seeing was information on helicopter flight schools. Because I intentionally tried to push that, to narrow that algorithm to where that's all it was.
Right.
And breaking out of that algorithm to see other things, I couldn't do very easily until there was something that had been driven harder in the algorithm, which is usually by paid advertisement.
Right.
That you're feeding into the algorithm further. Why is this scary? Well, it's scary for one particular reason. You get enough of that profile information together and you fill in enough of those blanks and you can guess who the person is. And you can do a really good job of that. So you can actually figure out, this is Matt looking at this TikTok, even if it's this 8-digit, 16, 32-digit character that identifies me. The AI can de-identify or rather re-identify the information that has been de-identified. And it's a pretty good guess. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Right. But then when you start shuffling in other pieces of information, that are in there, eventually it becomes really, really good. And you've created an entire digital profile about a person that can be used to effectively predict how they're going to act in a particular situation. Like if they were approached by a Chinese operative and given $1 million, would they share state secrets? So this is the fear that is driving the United States government to make decisions about data collecting apps. Why they targeted TikTok? Honestly, I don't know. Theoretically, it's, if government officials are using it and you're worried about them sharing state information, just tell them not to use it.
Yeah.
Be like, you're not allowed to use TikTok, which is what a lot of other countries do.